the report has singular value because it goes into what data mining is, and I think it's everybody's responsibility to make themselves understand what data mining is. It's really not as complicated as a lot of people believe it to be. The phrase is a little bit provocative because of the usages it's gotten, though it originated just as a simple way of describing about learning by examining data. I might prefer to use the phrase data mining only for what's pattern-based or predictive, but the report treats link-based and pattern-based as similar. It's really easy. It's really great that a concept can be broken down into two pieces, and once you've understood both of them, you understand the concept. Link-based is simply when you know something and you use it to find something else. So the pocket litter, as they call it in something possessed by a criminal or a terrorist, might have a phone number. If you go and look at whose phone that is, that's link-based analysis. You can do. There are obviously lots of examples throughout law enforcement and throughout society where we use link-based analysis all the time. Likewise, we use pattern-based analysis all the time. And my favorite example is where credit card companies have learned through experience that someone buying $5 worth of gas at a gas station and very soon thereafter buying a $3,000 TV set at a Best Buy, that might be a stolen credit card or criminal use because they're testing to see if the card is live before they go and buy the $3,000 television set. That's pattern-based. It's predictive in the sense that it raises the odds, sometimes quite highly, that something bad is going on, and at a certain threshold gives the credit card company a reason to investigate. These are fairly simple concepts that might be a little bit obscured by the use of the term data mining, that sometimes confuses people and gets them thinking that worse things are going on than actually are. The report includes a host of good data practices that all organizations should at least be thinking about, but I think are especially important in the government sector where there aren't market forces to husband the behavior of agencies. There's no argument, I think, that all of these practices are easy to do. In particular, access and correction, which are great ideals, present huge challenges and are in tension with security of data. No one says that this is the last word, but there's a lot of work to do, and all the recommendations in the report are good. One in particular that jumped out for me, and one that I've emphasized or stressed for a lot of years, is the idea that the protections talked about here follow government exercises of authority. They don't just exist within government. So when private sector data, privately held data, privately developed data is used for government decision making, due process rights apply. And I've sometimes encouraged my friends in the private sector to reconsider whether they actually want to be participating in some of these programs, because they are going to have to, if due process is going to exist, they're going to have to open up their data. They're going to have to allow people to examine the data, the decision rule. They're essentially going to have to implement due process. That's a lot of work, but it's appropriately done when privately held data, privately generated data is going to be used for government decision making. So I was glad to see that in the report. Now we turn to the critiques, and in my own outline, I wrote good up above, and down below I didn't write bad. I wrote meh, because so these are the things that I was sort of like thinking about as I read. One, although the report is correct in stating a couple of different times that there is not a lot of utility in data mining for finding terrorists, there was one point where it sort of accepted uncritically the idea that maybe there was a way of using data mining to catch the underwear bomber from a year ago. And that was based on a Wired News story that was based on the White House's after action report released in January, pretty soon after. But I think that after action report, if you will, was a little bit more of a political document than an analytical document. The administration was not in a position politically to say, there's no way we were going to know about this in advance. But I think the truth is, and it's something that the people and the society has to accept, is that there's no way that we're going to know about some of this stuff in advance. And so there isn't, I don't think, a data mining program that can turn up these plans, because terrorism relies on surprise, literally relies on surprise. When you tweak a data mining program, you're often as the report discusses, you're changing the level of false negatives to false positives. The way to catch the underwear bomber in advance is to cause tens of thousands or perhaps hundreds of thousands of visitors to the United States, maybe even more than that, to be interfered with in ways that they would find intolerable. And so you'd really do more damage to the society than was done in this failed attempt. I repeat, because some people still don't have it, and I'm not referring to the report here, this was a failed attempt, not a successful one. Some of the recommendations are big challenges and maybe even inapt to pattern-based data mining. And I pick especially on the idea of data minimization as being a principle you would apply to data mining. Because data mining works by examining the biggest possible field of data you can get your hands on. This is, everybody who's read this paper, Mining Association Rules Between Sets of Items in Large Databases, please raise your hand.
Okay, no.
I figured, this is the 1993 paper that sort of set data mining in motion by Rakesh Agrawal and two names that are even more difficult to pronounce. But it basically takes the problem of figuring out relationships among purchases in grocery stores. There's a 90% confidence factor that somebody buying milk is also buying bread, for example. That's just as an example. So how do we figure out the relationship between sales of chips and Diet Coke? What's the relationship between bagels and cream cheese and so on and so forth? In 1993, they had difficulties with sufficient memory to do these kinds of things. So the genius of this was that it was actually it was conservative of computing power. We no longer have those restraints, and so data mining can be quite extensive. But the point is that you want to compare sales of all 10,000 items in the grocery store with all 10,000 other items in the grocery store to see what people are buying with what other things. And if you've got a loyalty card type program, then you want to see over time what people are buying from day to day or from week to week and so on and so forth. The problem that you're trying to solve in data mining is when people are buying walnuts with collard greens, not when people are buying bread with butter, the stuff we already know. Walnuts with collard greens means that my mom's recipe for collard greens is getting popular around the country. So these are the things, the new information you're trying to generate with data mining. You don't get there by data minimization. You do data maximization when you're doing data mining. And so that really sort of brings me to the final point, which is to emphasize that data mining of the pattern-based style, predictive data mining, or if you like, odds-improving data mining, is voracious. It's voracious. And the report, to my mind, was fairly accepting of the status quo with regard to government access to data. Take the status quo and then wash over it the changes in technology, and in particular data mining, and the privacy costs of what we ask the government to do are rising. Now, in addition to that, over time, the data consumption of the federal government is rising. So we have rising consumption of data and rising use of data, meaning that privacy costs are perhaps rising exponentially, or at least double the rate that they would otherwise. And so I think it's important to emphasize that privacy is a cost of government, and that cost is rising dramatically. And we have to maybe rethink what we ask the federal government to do in light of those privacy costs.